Dynasty rookie review, wide receivers, them and the quarterbacks going into this draft. We knew it was deep in quarterbacks and wide receivers, and it played out that way. I think it was the first time in NFL history we had 4 rookies have 1,000 receiving yards. One of those was Brock Bowers, so not a receiver, but 3 other receivers and neighbors, McConkey and Brian Thomas went over 1,000. So we're here. We're reviewing some of the rookies, looking at their stats from this year, their value at the end of the season, and kind of what to do with them during the offseason and heading into 2025. So all the stats you see are through week 17. So that's why they're a little bit off if you just look up their total stats. And we'll start off with the first pick, the generational talent in Marvin Harrison Jr. He was a huge disappointment. He was a early second-round pick in redraft. And just wasn't good this year, flat out, 800 yards. If this was 10, 15 years ago, this is a great rookie season, 57 catches, 822 yards, 7 touchdowns, 37th in receiving yards. Again, I think he was 5th for rookies in receiving yards. So just very, very disappointing year. It affected him a bit. He started off the year as the wide receiver 5, according to Keep Trade Cut on September 1st. Did get as high as the wide receiver 3, and then fell to the wide receiver 10. So he's still a top 10 receiver. Just shows you kind of, the value of receivers, that they're not as volatile as running backs, and still worth a 2025 early first. Again, are we trading him for an early first? I don't think so, but I don't know. If someone offers you, Brian, the 101 or the 102, they offer you Ashton Genty or the second player, whoever you want in this draft, whoever that's going to be. Are you taking it? Or are you still holding out hope for Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yeah, I think I'm still holding out hope, depending on what your team needs, I guess, because, there's a good chance that that's what you paid for him. Somewhere in that top 3, almost certainly. So if you feel like re-rolling, fine. But I don't think I think the expectations were just too high, and it's hard because you tend to compare these guys to, well, what about some of the other guys we're about to talk about? Look how much better they did, and still 800 yards receiving in the rookie season is still good. We're hoping to see him get used a little differently in the offense. So I think I'm holding out hope.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do. Again, if someone offered you Ashton Genty for him, sure. If you wanted to take it, that's fine. It could be a win. It could be a loss. Can't really tell you that right now. You're not these quarterbacks coming out this year. So that's the difference between an early first in 2025 is very different than an early first in 2024. If Marvin Harrison Jr. was in a different draft class and all the guys that came out last year are coming out this year, you probably do it because you're going to get Caleb Williams or someone like or Jaden Daniels or someone like that. You're not getting that in this draft. It's going to be most likely a running back or another receiver who could just flop like Marvin Harrison Jr. and was not as good of a prospect as Marvin Harrison Jr. So, it's interesting one here. My only concern is his lack of separation. I think it was 37% of his targets were contested, meaning a defender was there making the catch difficult for him. And that is concerning because, over the course of a season, I think that there's a lot of factors that go into that, the types of routes that you run, the offense, all that stuff. But over the course of a season, you would think that a good percentage of that is the receiver's ability to get open. And so it's definitely something I'm looking more into and looking at rookie guys creating separation and stuff like that. Guys who are really, really good coming out of college last year. Lad McConkey created a lot of separation. Ricky Pearsall created a lot of separation. Jalen McMillan, some guys that Marvin Harrison Jr. was a bit higher for college prospects at 25% in college. and it kind of translated to the NFL. So that is a little bit concerning. He didn't look generational, but again, a lot of factors do play into that. I think the big thing that also brings him down a little bit is like the reason why we like Marvin Harrison, because when we looked at guys like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, what was like the common denominator there is like they had a good quarterback throwing to them. So we kind of thought that with Marvin Harrison as well, as opposed to Neighbors or who also went right after him. So still, yes, I agree with you. I'm not trading him for an early first unless it's like guaranteed to be JT. That's the only guy really that I would probably consider. If someone does want to give me a little bit more, I might think about it though. I might think about it. Malik Neighbors. Amazing. Did this, I think he missed 2 games, maybe 3 games. Maybe you can look that up real quick. It was either 2 or 3. 162 targets was insane.
It was 2.
It was 2. Okay. 104 catches, 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns with Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito and who was the other one that got in there? Drew Lock. And there was even someone else, I think, that got in there.
Tim Boyle.
Yeah, I was going to say, was it Tim Boyle? Just a carousel of guys. That's probably going to change. Giants have the 3rd pick, but the 2 teams in front of them do kind of need quarterbacks, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. There's a pretty good quarterback free agency stuff, but that's to talk about for later. Malik Neighbors was the wide receiver 7 overall, wide receiver 7 in points per game. He was the wide receiver 7 in the first half, wide receiver 14 in the second half. Just came out on fire. I kind of talked about this going into last year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Neighbors had a better fantasy season than Marvin Harrison 2024. He's basically worth 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, and you can even argue, is that even worth it for him? He's the wide receiver 3, right behind Chase and Jefferson. Maybe that's changed a little bit. Malik Neighbors, what else to say besides he's awesome? It's going to be hard to get him. I personally think you should be valuing him, especially in a little bit shallower leagues. So 10-team leagues, 12-team leagues where you're starting 7, 8, 9 guys, he probably should be more like 3 firsts because you need the difference maker guys in those leagues. Wide receiver 24 doesn't win it for you. Deeper leagues, it's different. But the standard league, like 12 teams start 10, which I feel like a standard. 2 firsts is probably okay, but I don't know if I would sell him for that. Would you?
Probably not. Just because you're doubling up your dart throws, but it's still kind of like, what are the chances of both those guys are going to hit? Yeah. So I don't really like it.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just an absolute target monster, it was just looking at his game log is just everything. His worst game is 7. His first game of the year, 7 targets, so many are over 10. But if you're, I guess we could talk about it more. Let's talk about it when we get to BTJ. So I was going to ask if you're redrafting the wide receivers in this rookie class, but we'll do that when we get to BTJ because he should belong in that conversation. Rome Odunze. I actually was like a little bit, I didn't realize he had as much as he did. Not that it was like usable for fantasy, but he did get basically 100 targets, 50 catches, which is a pretty terrible catch rate. Sorry, I hit my mic there. 700 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. I thought he was going to have maybe more touchdowns and that was going to be his path to relevancy. He just wasn't good for fantasy. But I think we kind of expected that with him. He is getting, like you always say, we're kind of penalizing him twice, right? Where we already bring him down a little bit because we knew he was going to be bad, and then we kind of bring him down a bit more because he is bad in fantasy. So how you feeling about Odunze overall? Like, are you excited for him in 2025 and beyond? Do you kind of wish we saw, at least one big game from him, like big game from him? Would that make you feel a little bit more comfortable? Or are you looking at him as like a buy low potentially?
Yeah, I think if you can buy him low, like I'm good with trying to do that. Just based on what we thought about him coming in, like I think Caleb getting a full year under his belt, Adunze doing the same. I think the rapport there is only going to grow stronger. Needless to say, like I don't expect Keenan Allen to be back. The Bears have some things to work on, for sure. But it's going to be he's going to have a tough path in general, given second-year quarterback and DJ Moore on the team. But I think he can that can actually work in his favor. So I'm excited about this upcoming year.
Yeah, I definitely think he's a buy low. Like if I can get him, even for wide receiver 19 overall value, I will, just because I do think like this guy was a top 10 pick. I know he was the third receiver. He was still a top 10 pick. And a lot of people had him as like maybe the best receiver in this draft class, like making the argument for it. And again, we knew it was going to be tough. Not only was he with the rookie quarterback, but he had Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet there and stuff like that. Like, so again, 100 targets is nice to see. 54 catches is horrendous. Like I don't know. I'd have to go back and see all of them, like how many of those are catchable and all that. Only he had 6 drops, so it's not like he dropped a crazy amount. So yeah, just kind of interesting. I do wish it's always nice to see like that 2-3 week stretch or that one game where it's like, all right, this is the guy I drafted and this is what I'm going to bank everything on. But I think Caleb's going to be fine personally, and I think that offense is going to move forward with kind of more in a Dunze. But BTJ, the wide receiver 4 in total points, wide receiver 9 in points per game, was good all year with Lawrence, with Mac Jones, had 122 targets, 80 catches, over 1,175 yards, 10 touchdowns. And again, this is through week 17. I did not expect BTJ to be this good this fast. I thought he was going to be a little bit more like a big play kind of guy, for that offense. Obviously, the end of his season really, made him go from like, oh, yeah, this is a good season to like, oh, this was like a great season, like crazy amount of targets, everything 10, 12, 14, 13, 10, 11. That's his last 6 weeks. And he's basically he's the wide receiver 7, and he's also worth like 2 firsts. So if you're going back and drafting him, maybe this rookie class or just the receivers, is it Malik, BTJ, Marvin? Is it Marvin? Is it the same order? Marvin, Neighbors, BTJ, which was basically what the order was. Actually, sorry, it was Marvin. I think it went Marvin, Neighbors, Adunze, and then either BTJ or Worthy was kind of like the order there. So like how are you drafting those receivers, and where does BTJ fall?
Yeah, I think I'm still taking him third. Well, not still, but yeah, I think he's earned it to go above Adunze, given what he did with who was throwing him the ball. Just the Jaguars' offense in general looked terrible, and he was basically the only one really producing anything worth starting. So there's something to be said about that. Obviously, like he's got some good speed, and we saw that he can be that alpha. Granted, most of this year was without Christian Kirk, but I don't think he's necessarily coming back and like taking his job back or anything like that as the primary target there in Jacksonville. Yeah, I think just really, really promising. Not trading him for 2 seconds, unless
2 seconds.
unless one of them is very high. Or sorry, 2 firsts. Yeah, I don't know why I said. I guess I had 2 on the brain. Yeah, not doing it for 2 firsts unless one of them is very high, and you're just kind of like cashing in again. But I think he's a special talent. I think a little overvalued given some of the guys that are behind him, but it's hard to argue. I mean, great rookie season, and did a lot of it of his best games with Mac Jones, which is great to see.
Maybe Mac Jones is better than Trevor Lawrence.
Maybe.
I get the hesitation. We were just talking about like someone in our league doesn't think he's top 10, but also if you actually watch him, you can kind of see as well, like the stats and the film, they agree with each other, or the film backs up the stats, where it's like, oh yeah, like this guy's really good, whether and we were seeing that, like you could see that even when he wasn't putting up massive games, even in the beginning of the year, where it just like wasn't clicking with him and Trevor Lawrence. He was fine in the beginning of the year, but he wasn't like obviously what he was the end of the year. So like I feel like because of that, I'm fine with him where he is. I would probably take him over Marvin Harrison Jr., to be honest. It's funny how things change so quickly, but this was a massive season, man. Like this was, in terms of yards, 8th best season in the history of the NFL. Like, so like this is, and all the guys that are ahead of him, Puka, I'm not going to talk about Bill Groman from 1960 because I don't know anything about him. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Anquan Bolden's a borderline Hall of Famer. Randy Moss, Hall of Famer. Odell Beckham, was amazing until the injury started to take him out. So it's just like history shows that this guy's going to be awesome. But I'm fine with him too. I'm fine with if you even want to argue him over Neighbors. Like I'm not even going to sit there and argue. Like it's just what are we arguing really? So I think he's just that good. I really do. 2 firsts, they would have to be like the 101 and like the 104, the other one in the top 5. If I'm trading him for 2 firsts, I would need to get Genty and then, be able to get like a Ted McMillan or Luther Burden, another top wide receiver prospect in this draft in order to trade him away. There were more first round receivers. Xavier Worthy, he's the wide receiver 30 in total points, wide receiver 40 in points per game, wide receiver 36 in the first half, wide receiver 29 in the second half in points per game. Both those had 100 targets, 60 catches, over 600 yards, 6 touchdowns. Also had 20 carries, which is, don't underestimate that stuff. That's like, again, that pushes and only 100 yards on 20 carries. That's actually not a very good average. Usually receivers are closer to 8 to 10 yards per carry. So don't underestimate that stuff. That can give you an extra 200 yards, right? Pretty easily. You got to kind of look at Worthy's season from like November 3rd, I think it was. It was early November 4. It was early November. So November 17th. If you look at it from like November 17th, he was on like a really good pace. It was like 1,100 total yards. I think it was like 90 catches, close to double-digit touchdowns with like 150 on the ground. So he was really good. I want to hear your thoughts about him because I have a couple thoughts about Worthy. Like where are you at with him? He's currently the keep trade cuts wide receiver 28. So people are looking at him still as a wide receiver 3. You think that's fair? You think that's low? You think it's high? Where are you at with his season? Because it was kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, I think he had a little bit more of a traditional wide receiver rookie season, like where we saw him starting to play better, getting more involved in general, especially towards the end. I think the playoffs will be a huge, not necessarily benefit, but it'll be good to get some more looks at him to see like what he's doing. But all in all, like, yeah, solid rookie season. I wonder what it's going to look like when Rice gets back. But there is the looming suspension there too. But I mean, I'm buying at wide receiver 28.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious if we can see a little bit more integration into this offense, like what that's going to look like, but the Chiefs were basically top 5, 6 in pass attempts, which was kind of interesting. Because it really started to get a little a little more turned on there, and he's got that speed too. Like, was he the fastest guy in the combine ever? It was, right?
Yeah, 4.21.
Yeah. So it's nice to see the Chiefs playing with some speed again, which they haven't had basically since Tyreek's departure. So I really like that.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I actually think for some people that the speed and the 4.21 actually hurt Worthy in a way, because like the people that didn't really watch him or they're saying, so he's a deep threat speed guy, and we don't like those in fantasy. Teams value those kind of players. We don't like those in fantasy because they're hard to to predict and be consistent production. So he's much more than that, in my opinion. When I watched him at Texas, like he was a lot more than that. He wasn't just a deep threat type of guy, and I think we started to see that as the season progressed. And I know, and I'm glad you brought it up, the Rashee Rice thing. And I actually think having someone like Rashee Rice out there helps Worthy. I don't think he can be the number one guy where teams are focusing their best players on him. I think he's best when they have other players out there. I don't think it's a coincidence that like he started to take off as soon as like Hopkins was traded for and started to get a little bit integrated into the offense, as Juju got there. Who is a professional receiver at the very least, and that kind of opened things up for Worthy, in my opinion. So I think it actually will help with Rashee Rice out there. I don't think he's going to overtake him as the number one guy, but we're talking about Mahomes, who can throw for 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. If this offense is clicking and there's enough to go around. So I like Worthy. I'm buying him at that price, and I'm not selling him at that price for sure. And like his season looked very similar to Rashee Rice in terms of when they started to get going. It was like week 10, 11, 12 of last year. Now Rice was better over that last stretch, but I think we were very quick to just like, Worthy kind of sucks. And I think people were very quick to kind of have that feeling towards him. So glad he started to really come on at the end there. Couple more guys in the first round here. Ricky Pearsall had a good last couple of games, which is good to see. I'm actually going to pull up what he did in his last game here, but he went to the 49ers. We're not going to talk about the fantasy stats and stuff, but it was basically like, look at what he did at the end of the year: 8 for 141, 6 for 69 to end the year. So I think people are glad that they got that out of him. He is a mid-second round pick, where if you can get him for that, I'm buying all the Ricky Pearsall I can. I don't think you can, but I'd even trade an early second in this year's draft for him easily, because I think there's a potential like he has a bigger role in this offense. So, are you on the same page there with Pearsall, or didn't see enough?
I mean, we saw flashes, which is always good. Like, I know I just said this about Worthy, about the traditional wide receiver like rookie season. This might even be more that, where it's like, okay, like let's see him work his way in. And he started to, definitely playing a lot more in the second half of the season, but a lot of his value is going to be determined by the off season, I guess. Like the Niners have already said, like, yeah, we want to keep. They just paid Ayuk, obviously. They said they want to keep Debo, which we'll see about that. They've been talking about trading Debo for like a year and a half now. Well, yeah, about a year and a half. Maybe just more like a year. But anyways, he's still got Juwan Jennings, and George Kittle's getting older. He's not an old man yet, though, so he's in a crowded team, where it's gonna be hard to like. Is he just like a set it and forget it guy? Like, it's gonna take him like having a solid year in order for you to do that. But now's the time to buy if you believe in what you saw.
Yeah, and I liked his talent coming out and didn't expect much from this year. And remember he did get shot. He was shot. And that obviously, like, he could have been he could have been what they got out of Juwan Jennings, like maybe that was like the plan for Ricky Pearsall, and just like, he got shot and he missed the first 6 weeks, and that just became Jennings' job. And it's hard for a rookie to just step in middle of October or whatever and just like, yep, here I am. Like just look at all receivers that get traded midseason. It's really hard. So definitely buying at that cost, at that price, but I don't know if you can get him at that price, to be honest. But maybe I don't know. Rookie picks, and then when the draft gets closer and closer, people get more and more excited. The last first round receiver here, Xavier Legette. He had flashes. He didn't do much for fantasy except for a couple. There was waiver wire redraft stuff there. Did have 80 targets, 50 catches. I was kind of like mixed feelings about Legette in terms of a prospect. Still respected him as like a first round pick and things like that. I still think the Panthers are looking for their true number one receiver, and that's kind of how I view Legette, is like kind of the second guy on a team. But if that offense improves, we could see something here. So, who would you rather have, Pearsall or Legette? Like, if you had to choose one, because they're valued basically the same. Would you have a preference in Pearsall versus Legette?
No, not really. I'm guessing I would lean Legette, like thinking Bryce Young's going to continue to improve, like we saw over the second half of the season. Yeah, I didn't really watch a lot of Panthers, so it's kind of like hard to have like a strong value judgment, but he's got an easier road, I would say, forward. So I'm going to lean Legette there.
Yeah, I'll go Pearsall just because I think he's a better player for the NFL today, and for fantasy. And I like the system of the 49ers a lot more, and I kind of trust that system. Although the path will be harder for him for sure. Does that change if the Panthers take like a receiver in the first or second round, or bring in a receiver in free agency? Does that change
No,
for
I
you,
don't.
or not really?
I don't think so. Because, like you were saying, like I don't know if he's ever gonna, if they're gonna view him as a true number one guy, but maybe he's. I think both these guys should be viewed as basically wide receiver fours, who can move into a bigger role.
Yeah. I guess we can even talk about Keon Coleman in kind of that same area, although he's valued a little bit higher. Had some flashes there. It kind of sucks because it seemed like he was starting to get going, and then he got hurt. So if you kind of look at like his mid to late October stretch there, it's like, oh yeah, he's making some plays, he's doing some things, and then he got hurt, I think, against Miami, and then didn't, missed a month and a half. So that kind of sucks. I wasn't the biggest Keon Coleman guy out of college. He did get a good landing spot and good draft capital and all of that. I would take Pearsall pretty easily over Keon Coleman. I don't know if you feel the same way there, but I would kind of easily take that. And I think we saw like with Buffalo and their offense is like I think they kind of want to run it this way, where it's just like a bunch of guys getting involved and not just one Stephon Diggs kind of guy, but I might be off there with that, but I think I'm going to believe in the talent a little bit more. I would definitely take a guy like Pearsall over Coleman.
Yeah, I think I'm still going to lean Coleman just given the offense and stuff. Yeah. Like I mean, it's hard to argue. Like we did see kind of a down year in terms of pass attempts for Josh Allen, and they are spreading it around quite a bit more. They obviously were, making it happen without their true number one guy this year. So, a little more run heavy than what we've seen. Yeah. So it's hard to argue, but I think I'll take Keon Coleman there over Pearsall.
Yeah. And there's kind of two ways to approach it. You can approach it from the landing spot and stuff like that, or just the talent. And again, I just think Pearsall's a better talent than Coleman. So Ladd McConkey was also taken early second round, was one of the 4 rookies to have 1,000 yards. Way better again than I thought he was going to be. I put 12 games there. I don't think that's right. I think that's from another thing. But he did miss a couple of games, I believe.
Just one, it looks like.
One, okay. But yeah, he was awesome. He kind of saved the Chargers in the passing game here. Had a finished the season with 1,150 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's up to he was the wide receiver 17 in the second half, wide receiver 13 in total points overall, which is kind of crazy. And he is a top 15 wide receiver according to Keep Trade Cut. So valued as an early, a potential early and late first round pick. I will say this: I do think the Chargers bring in another weapon, and so that just like the optics of that could just affect his value. Just as soon as they draft someone, he's going to go down in value instantly from that, whether he should or not. I think he's just one of those guys. He consistently puts up seasons like this, like whether there's a number one option there or not. Like I think they have a good enough quarterback to get them the ball, and I think he just consistently gives you 80, 90 catches, 1,100 yards, and 5 to 7 touchdowns every year, and it's just solid. You can count on it type of production. So, do you think there's a limited upside with Ladd McConkey, and would you sell him for that reason, or do you just like that kind of consistent production?
Yeah, I think he can play basically the Keenan Allen role as he works his way into this offense more. Like he was like heavily featured, especially a little bit later once we saw the Chargers throwing the ball a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I do agree, like that they're going to bring someone else in. Whether or not that's another wide receiver, it depends on if Quentin Johnston can actually stop dropping the ball. But I just don't know what to expect there necessarily. They could probably use another guy, like even if it's a tight end that they bring in to kind of fill that role. And it'll be interesting what they do at running back if they get kind of a more of a pass catching guy, which we know Dobbins can do, but is he going to be there? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, all in all, I think what Ladd did is really good. He might be. Sorry, my Keep Trade Cut's not really working that well. Where did you say he's ranked? Did you say 15?
I had it 14, but it might have changed, but right around there, yeah.
Okay.
13 right now.
Yeah, that's probably not too far off, basically like a high-end number 2 guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think he's only his rapport with Herbert's only going to continue to grow. And he's attached to him, so that's great.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy to see the wide receiver market's a little saturated just because he's above AJ Brown and T Higgins and stuff. The one thing I'll say about McConkey though, and it's a legitimate fear, is his ability to stay healthy. I know he only missed 1 game, but he was beat up a lot, and is he going to miss more? Missed time in college his last year. He is a small guy playing over the middle of the field a lot, so that is a little bit of concern. But I'm actually not worried about them bringing in another wide receiver or tight end. So when that happens, because I think it's going to happen, buy the dip on him, because there will be a dip for sure. Jalen Polk was taken in the second round after McConkey. Actually, the Patriots traded off of their pick and gave it to the Chargers. They took McConkey, and then the Patriots took Polk. This is like code red right here, because he did nothing. He had 12 catches for 87 yards, and he was playing a decent amount in the first half of the season, the first 7 weeks. Quick math says right around a 60, 65%, maybe 70. He was playing a decent amount, and then he stopped playing as much, and he just didn't do anything. So I think it's and they needed wide receiver help. It's not like they were throwing to Kayshon Boutte and Kendrick Bourne and guys like that. So this is bad. And he's fallen all the way to the wide receiver 73, which is justifiable. But man, this is like really, really bad. Like, are you just holding for now? If someone offered you a 3rd round pick for him, are you just like cut your losses and just like, yep, I'll take it and re-roll something, even though you probably took him in the 2nd round?
Yeah, I think he was going kind of towards the end of the 2nd. So if you're not losing too much, like, yeah, it's definitely like very bad to see because, like you said, like there wasn't a lot of competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wonder if health played into this very much. Like he did miss a game in week 8, and then after that he just wasn't involved at all. Like, not that he was like super involved before that, but he was playing more.
So
we started.
it was a concussion, which could have effects. It could have effects long term. Not saying it can't. But yeah, it could have. But yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, we didn't get to see him play very much with Drake May either, and so hopefully we'll see some sort of development there. But yeah, it's hard to like feel good, but he's basically at the end of your roster kind of a thing as of right now. But it's hard to throw these highly drafted guys. But I mean, he was drafted by the Patriots, who just kind of suck at drafting guys,
The receivers in particular.
Yeah, right. So,
and that real quick, that does come into play a little bit too. Like the college is, Ohio State receiver goes off, people are going to bump them up more because Ohio State's known for receivers. Patriots receiver is going to get a downgrade no matter how good they are, just because they're, they have that reputation. So it's good to kind of bring up.
Yeah, he basically had a 1 game of Malik Neighbors, 12 catches, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like that was his season, like that's. So yeah, no, that does not feel good for sure.
Yeah, I remember them saying, because the Chargers played the Patriots the second to last week, and they basically said like McConkey had 94 yards, and that was more than Polk had the entire season. So yeah, it's really bad. I generally don't mind when guys fall this far and they have the draft capital and they're young, like get them as a throw in, but I think it's like it's just bad. It's bad news there. Couple more guys here. Jalen McMillan had a good end of his year. He's going to be very interesting. He's in a very interesting spot because like you could probably buy him for a decent, depending on what he does in the playoffs. But I don't think you can buy him for a mid-second. But you might be able to buy him for like a potential early second, and that might be a really good trade. And that could also be a bad trade if they bring Godwin back or something. But Godwin's a free agent coming off a kind of a significant injury. But yeah, McMillan's last. He caught a touchdown in 5 straight games, and he had 8 touchdowns in the last 5 games. So or maybe 7 touchdowns. I think it was. Let me see.
I see 7 receiving. He might have ran one in at some point.
Okay. Yeah, but not huge yardage and stuff like that. But he's exactly what you want when you draft a guy who goes like 3rd round in the NFL draft. It's like, show me something, give me a stretch, so I feel fine keeping you and don't cut you, and then you turn out to be good. Because it's really hard to hold on to guys, which we're going to bring up here soon. A bunch of other guys in the 3rd round that did nothing. It's hard to hold on to those guys, and they still could hit. Yeah, I mean, it's like, would you roll the dice and send an early 2nd pick for McMillan right now, just banking on he's the number 2 for the Buccaneers next year?
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with it. Like, it is a little, it's hard to get behind. Like, obviously, it's really exciting when you're starting him. You're getting a touchdown or 2 every week, but those touchdowns are so unpredictable. And like Baker was kind of playing out of his mind because he needed to, like the team needed him to. So I don't know. It's so heavily weighted towards touchdowns, which, even if he gets 8 all of next season, like that would be good, So yeah, I think an early 2nd, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those you easily could lose, but you can also hit like pretty nicely on that too. So I'm kind of in agreement there, and I'm fine also selling him potentially for that. and kind of taking that gamble as well. Like it's just, do you want to gamble or not, depending on how your roster's set up. Jalen Coker, who's undrafted, is the last guy I have a graphic for here, who did some things, and came on as an undrafted guy and started to produce and be talked about in redraft. I think it's interesting. I think he has a nice role for this team. And like, I don't think it's crazy to say like he could be better than Leggett. I know it's crazy going into the season saying that because undrafted guys normally don't hit, but we saw some production and just them using him means they think he's good. And, it's not like they had other guys there that they could have used. So I don't know, just want to give him a little bit of a shout out there. He's basically worth like a late second, early third. Like, would I trade that for him? Probably not. Like, is he going to develop into like a difference making guy? Probably not. He's probably a bench guy to fill in during bye weeks, but want to give him a little bit of a shout out.
Plus the drug problem.
Is it drug problem?
Yeah, it's right there in the name, dude.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying you got busted or something.
Oh.
Yeah, there's always that. I did want to ask you, so there's a group of third round guys and it was Malachi Corley. I forgot about Adonai Mitchell, by the way. I thought I put a graphic here for him, but real quick on Adonai Mitchell, because he was a second round pick and we should talk about him. Again, a guy I didn't really like coming out of college, but that's not going to be the sole reason I'm out on people, because I'm definitely going to be wrong. I just don't like the offense and like Anthony Richardson as the guy, and there's Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, and maybe they draft a tight end. Like, it's just, maybe the problem is he didn't take over the role from Alec Pierce. I think that was the big thing. Like, we saw Alec Pierce outproduce him. And so that was a little bit concerning for me. So I'm kind of out on Adonai Mitchell, maybe not to the extent of Polk, but anything you want to say about AD Mitchell?
No, yeah, I think one of the biggest things he has against him, just like you said, is the offense, which could change, but he's a guy you can probably get off the waivers at some point in the middle of next season if you really think anything is going to change. But I mean, even when Flacco was playing, like, we didn't really see anything from him. We saw one game where it's like there's no way anyone was starting him, where he played 94% of the snaps and caught 6 for 71. But I mean, it was back to obscurity after that. So yeah, I think I'm out.
Yeah, him not being able to beat out Alec Pierce is a little concerning, who I think is going to be there next year as well. But this group of third-round picks is Malachi Corley, Jermaine Burton, Roman Wilson, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen McMillan was in there, but, he's obviously different. But that group there, so Malachi Corley for the Jets, Jermaine Burton for the Bengals, Roman Wilson for the Steelers, and Luke McCaffrey for the Commanders. Is there one guy, if you had to choose one of those guys to kind of roll the dice with and buy super low on, which one stands out to you?
Geez. I mean, I'll just touch on the 3 that I have open right here real quick. Well, I guess I have 4. Like, I'm out on Corley. What the hell, like, we don't know what the hell the Jets are going to do. Like, enough said there. Jermaine Burton, like, he's got character issues. Yoshivas outplayed him. We don't know if Higgins is going to stay. Gesicki, I'm fine holding him at the very end of my bench for the possibility, but he did nothing. So I'm fine dropping him too. Luke McCaffrey had all the opportunity in the world. And he got outplayed by Olamide Zaccheaus. Or how did you say it yesterday? Was that Olamide or something?
Olamide? I think it's Olamide.
Okay. I thought you said it weird when we brought him up like last week or something. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, like, I'm okay, again, end of the bench, but I'm kind of okay cutting him too if I need the spot. But, like, we'll see what the Commanders do, but they played so well without needing him at all. He didn't play himself into any kind of role, so that's fine. And all that being said, the guy who played the least and did absolutely nothing, no targets, no catches, anything, is not that I'm holding him over the other guys, but I am kind of interested in what Roman Wilson does in the second season.
Yeah, he was hurt
just
all year, by the way.
yeah,
That's why
right,
he didn't. Mhm.
right. But just a much like I, yeah, I think like he has a path as far as like the guys in front of him. Like I don't think Calvin Austin is going to continue to be relevant in this offense in a receiver role.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see during the playoff game that they lose. Burn.
Yeah. Or
um,
wins.
yeah, I know, right? It is against Baltimore, so we'll see. But I mean, it's a run heavy team in general with the Steelers. So that's not in his favor, but at least we're gonna see like he has a chance, like just given that he didn't play, it almost works in his favor compared to all these other guys who played and nothing.
Weirdly enough, I'm kind of the same with Roman Wilson, just because I think he's the best. He was the best talent out of these guys, so he's probably the guy I'd take a shot on. Troy Franklin, Javon Baker. I'm out on Javon Baker, just like I am with Polk. Franklin, Devontae Walker, Jacob Cowing were all 4th-round picks. I like Troy Franklin, so I'm always going to lean towards him a little bit. He could have maybe. Do they start using him more in year 2? Let's see. Still probably going to hold him. Devontae Walker could take over like the Aguilar Bateman role a little bit next year. We'll see about that. Do need to highlight Malik Washington and then, of course, Jordan Whittington, guys that did something. I like both of them and definite holds and buy lows. Washington could have a bigger role with Miami. And also Whittington with the Rams could kind of solidify that wide receiver 3 spot for them. And Kupp's getting older, so those guys are definite buy lows or hold. So, and then there's always stashes and stuff. But I made a stash video; you can check that out. Anything else there? Or are we good?
No, I think that's it. Trying to think if there's anyone else that I drafted anywhere. I don't know. I took some pretty wild shots.
I mean, Devon Velays did something like Brendan Rice for the Chargers. Maybe he'll do something, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, opportunities there to do something. But I mean, just probably not going to work out. I mean, most of these guys probably aren't going to work out. It's just kind of the nature of the game.
Yeah, I like Anais Smith. He's a Eagles wide receiver. He was hurt most of the year. Came back like mid-October. I think he complements like Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. He was like a running back / wide receiver in college, and we did see him play the last week because the starters were out and had 6 targets, 4 catches, 35 yards, touchdown. Also had a rush, and I think he can do that. But yeah, some guys to stash. Check out that stash video and kind of go over it there. But good wide receiver class, and it makes up for how not so great this one coming up is probably going to be. So appreciate everyone with our Dynasty review. Make sure to like and subscribe. We are 19 away from 1,000. And we'll be putting out a lot of like Dynasty price checks on more of the veteran guys throughout the off season. So check those out.
When we hit 1,000, we're going to mail a beer to Braylon
Allen. Exactly. Mail him a beer. Yeah, he'll be 21 at that point, right? Probably. So
hopefully
maybe
not.
We'll see. By the time it gets to him,
we got 9 days. Well, 8 days, and then we can overnight it.
Okay.
So
that's where we go.
Hit that subscribe button.
Appreciate everyone, and we will see you all very soon.